Well, first of all, thanks to Brazil Sitecore user group, and thanks Rodrigo for invite inviting me to give this talk. Um, I have been every year I try to pick up a topic and work on that. Like, for Sitecore, that the work I'm doing. Um, Last year it was identity server. This was I choose to work on structured logging, which I'm pretty excited about it. I have done some work, and I thought that is something that can add value to Sitecore. Um, so so I'll talk about structured logging and how we can enable structured logging in Sitecore. But first of all, why why even think about structured logging? So my biggest motivator is actually the pain that we suffer in troubleshooting applications, especially complex application like Sitecore. We oftentimes, the way things happen is that we focus more on the features, feature implementation and troubleshooting, and logging performance. All this comes later, which should not be the case. Even if we diligently add logging in our implementation, because we know that we have to troubleshoot sometime. It is very difficult to actually um, troubleshoot an application from the using log. Not because we have not worked on adding logging. It is just the architecture and everything is so complex that getting to the log files and using it for troubleshooting is actually a big pain. So that's where structured logging actually helps. So that's the biggest motivator to reduce pain. So I'm kind of quickly go through a scenario which we all of us actually face in our day-to-day work in Sitecore. Um, and as you know, if you have worked on a Sitecore scaled environment, there are multiple environment, multiple servers, and things can get very complex. So for example, um, you worked on implementation, now things are in production, and you uh, published your Sitecore content, you actually deployed your code, and something happened in production. This is something that happens intermittently, and client contacts you and say something is wrong. And so first thing you will ask is to actually provide you the production log, because Sitecore actually add logging in the logs. It's not like you cannot add in a different sync, but usually it is in the log. So, and usually you will not have access to the production server. You have to ask someone else to provide you all the logs and everything, and you get the logs after some time, and you get the logs from all environment, all servers, and you go through bunch of logs that takes probably you will have like a 50 log file to look at, and you look them, and basically you find after 2 days that there is some site code item was not published in a particular cd server, and it's happening in that cd server. It's just a it's a overstretch, but this kind of thing happens, and it takes a lot of time to actually solve that kind of problem. And basically sometime it takes so much time, we just just avoid looking at the logs. I mean, at least for me, it happened like, just don't bother looking at the logs. Like, look at site code, web database, and like, look at whether a item is missing. And most of the time we find things that way. But we are supposed to use the log. There is a systematic way to actually do the troubleshooting. And if we do that, we actually save a lot of time. So first of all, access to the log, and then like, when you get log file, it's just a bunch of messages. It's just so difficult to actually find anything from the log file. So that's the kind of pain that I'm talking about. So little bit of history of logging before I start talking about structured logging. Um, Logging was it we started using log long back. I mean, every language has a printf statement. So initially it was like use printf statement to troubleshoot things. But then we started thinking like, okay, so this is not like always will happen in my environment. So we have to persist this data so that we can go back and look at it. Okay, so we started persisting data, and same goes for the operating systems. Every operating system has some sort of logging capabilities and tools that you can use. For example, Linux has syslog, Windows has event logs. So you can go and take a look at those places and find out what's going on. But logging was like, always a kind of afterthought, uh, right? I mean, we want to persist some data, but never there was a thought that how we are going to actually use this data. So it- if we put some like, initial thought of organizing the data um, when we are logging, it will be actually helpful to slice and dice that data later on. Okay, so the logging started with text-based logging, where we start adding like, messages in the log file or database or wherever, but it's a bunch of text. Okay, there was no organization, no structure. So that's where structured logging comes into picture. Okay, structured logging is not afterthought. Structured logging define a structure for the messages that we are logging. So since we are following a structure, it is useful. It's actually easier to parse the log. So we'll see some example of that later, but that's the core concept of structured logging. So to understand that, we need to understand what text-based logging is. So most popular logging tool is actually, or framework is Log4j, and Sitecore also use Log4j. Many application was built on Log4j. And if you look at Log4j statement about what Log4j is, you will see that it says the Apache Log4j library is a tool to help the programmer output log statements to a variety of output targets. Log4j is a port of excellent Log4j framework to Microsoft.NET runtime. So the statement is itself says like, it's just to output some statement to some sort of like, target, which can be file, which can be database, which can be a like, search index. But it doesn't say like, how to structure the messages. Okay, so it's just like, a text-based message that you can send to a target. Every log entry is a message without separation between key and value. Like, there is no sort of key value pair when you are logging. So if you look at a text-based logging, it looks like something like, that a message, it does have some information in it, but it's actually just a one line statement which contains all the information in the message. So there is no, like, key value pair or anything there. Um, so in contrary to that, if we so let's look at this message here, which actually, this message, if I look at this message in structured logging, so um, I can take the same message and convert it into key value pair. So it puts, like, thread as a key, and thread number, time, and what time it is. So it gives a structure to the information. And in that way, structured logging is actually a different mindset. When you are logging, you have to think, like, what information you want to put in the log, how you want to, like, use key value pair. But the thing is, key value pair is good. It is good for machine, because machine can easily parse the file when there is key value pair. So it can query the data using key, but key value pair is not really um, very very useful or helpful for the human eye. It's not like, you look at a key value pair, it's not very human friendly way to convey a message. That's where structured logging comes, like, that's what structured logging adds, this idea of message template. So when you are adding a message, you will actually use a message template which will create the human readable message, as well as it will add the um, like, key value pair to the log. So we will see some message template later on in the example. So it addresses, message template addresses both the how well machine can read the log, as well as, like, whether human eyes can actually look at the log and find things. So one other advantage of message template is that since you are following a structure, message template is actually a particular type of message. So you can inherently create the event type. So you can actually search for some events or the log events um, which of similar message type. So you do not have to actually add code in your application to create some sort of type of event, which usually we do in text-based logging in Log4j. So if you want to create an event type, you have to actually add code in your application to create the event type. Whereas in structured logging, you just follow the message template and everything will be done inherently. Besides that, log enrichment, you want to add additional information to the log, like, what environment it is, what server is this, what application is this. So those kind of, or what process it is running. So those kind of additional information, you do not have to add in your code to add it in the log. You can actually add it. It's actually decoupled from the main logging. So as long as you enriching the log, it is going to add that information there. So we'll look at some code for enrichment later on. So that's the concept of structured logging. So next I will actually show you a demo of how troubleshooting is done in a structured logging scenario. I'll show you a tool that actually is called SIG. that something that can be used for structured logging. So seek is actually a sink. Sink, you can think of something like appender. So appender, like, in Log4j we have file appender, we have database appender, we have SMTP appender, any kind of appender that you can add in Log4j. Similar concept here in structured logging is called sink, and sink can be a database, sink can be a file, sink can be a console, and seek is one kind of sink, where you can actually send your logging statement, logging events. So seek run in the in a port in a web, like, it's a kind of a web server where you send your messages, and you can actually go to the seek tool and look at your messages in there. And seek is something like, used with Serilog. Serilog is actually a framework built using structured logging concept. So first of all, if you send your messages to seek, it's actually runs as a separate process, so you do not need to go to your Sitecore server and look at the log file. So you can give access to the developer to seek URL, and then developer can go there and look at the log. First of all, that's actually a huge benefit, because so you do not have to actually wait, and you have to have access to see the log. So once you are in seek, then several things you can do to narrow down your search. You want to see only the Sitecore log, so your Sitecore application log, so you can select that. You want to see only the log from your local environment, so you can select that. Then you want to see only the errors, so you can actually slice and see only the error. And then you can add different type of, like, parameters here. Here I have some application that I am actually running in my local environment. So if I want to select this application, then it will actually show me logs for that application. So since we're talking about Sitecore, we are, like, say we are my local environment. I'm looking at only the logs from my local environment or the Sitecore application. And if I want to see errors and warning, I can say, like, show me errors and warning. Or if I want to see only the warning, then I can turn off error and I can see only the warning. So once I see see all the logs there of type warning, and I can actually choose what different date or time I want to see the log. That is also possible. So it will show only between that time. Now I can choose to select a log event, and once I see that, I can see different enrichment there, the application name, environment, and different information in my log message. This is not something that I have added uh, to my log statement. Only thing that is added in the log statement is actually the one that you see on the top. But then this is actually enriched with those information. Now, once you have that, you can even like, query, like, for example, I want to see all the messages of this type, and then I can say, like, find from template. So there is only one message for that type. So it actually shows it, you can really query and find out all the messages of that type. Let me see if I can find one which is so maybe this one if I am so so all the messages of that type I can actually see with their time and everything. So there are several things that you can do here and easily narrow down the log and find out one that you are looking for. Besides this, like you can actually create because these are all data in the key value pair. You actually can aggregate this data and create a nice way to represent that using chart. So this is just very minimal, like things that I have here, but there are a lot of things, there are a lot of possibility here, that a lot of things that you can do. So this kind of shows, like how many events that was logged, what kind of events, and like how many of them had been logged. So lot of data that you can aggregate and represent in your dashboard. So that is a nice way to, like find out how the health of the application itself. Um, so that's and there are there are, like alerts and other thing that you can create, and you can add alerts based on, like different kind of apps. Like I have here some Teams app, email. So when some sort of event happens, event is logged, I can use a alert to send that event to particular feed in Teams or email. So that is very useful for, like alerting people when some sort of like problem happening in the application. So this is nice, right? I mean, basically, since the log is structured that way, there are a lot of possibility, and you can create this kind of tool, which is very difficult to do in a text-based logging. So that's the demo for the, um, so um, the thing that actually there are a lot of structured logging framework out there, like Serilog, Nlog. Um, uh, the one I like most is actually Serilog, which is quite popular. And in fact, Sitecore is actually already using Serilog for some of their modules, like Xconnect and other things that came later. So, but core Sitecore applications still use Log4net. It is still Log4net. And in fact, if you go to Sitecore, you will see that there is no Log4net. What they actually have done, they took the Log4net source. Basically, they created their Sitecore diagnostic based on all the interfaces there, because that gives them more control to, like address different things in logging. So everything is in the Sitecore.diagnostics. Um, but Serilog is nice, and using Serilog, you can actually create different things. Like I was talking about enrichers and sinks. You can actually use them to target your log in different things. Um, so So this gave me a thought, like, obviously Sitecore still is in core application is in the log4net, and it's a text-based logging. Can we do something to actually convert this text log to a structured log? And if we can do that, then we can take the Sitecore log and use a structured logging framework, and also, like, use sync like SIG to troubleshoot Sitecore issues. So um, and then that's when, like, I thought that maybe it is possible to create a SerilogAppender. It's a log4net appender. That's one thing in log4net, like, you can target the log to anything. So it is possible to take those logs and target to a different appender, like, which is one I'm going to show, the SerilogAppender. And SerilogAppender is actually takes this log and create a structured logging and push that to the sync, the target that I showed, SIG. Um, so basically, take the Sitecore log and convert it to Serilog format, and then enrich the log and send it to Serilog sync. That all it does. It's not complicated. So that way I can actually free myself to look at the log file, or go to the server, or like, and look at the log in a nice way, and slice and dice them, or narrow my problem area. So okay, so what I'm going to do is actually show you some code, and basically show you what this SerilogAppender is. So here is the Visual Studio code, and let's see, can I actually? Okay, so a appender is something that um, you actually derive from buffering appender skeleton. Um, there is actually, the idea is that all the logs coming to this appender will be buffered, and then it will be pushed. So this is a very simple class with some properties here, and the main method that needs to be overridden from the buffering skeleton, buffering appender skeleton, is send buffer. So what send buffer does is actually takes the events, which is log statement. It's an array of events, and once it has the events, I can initialize my log configuration for Serilog. Um, in the log configuration class, you can add different parameters. I can say what is my minimum level will be, like, level, as debug info, um, warning, error, fatal, etc. And then I can enrich them. When I'm creating this configuration, I can say, like, I want to add machine name, I want to add environment username, I want to add, like, how much memories usage is there, or thread ID. So all those information will be additionally added to the log. So that's the enrichment that I want to do. Um, Besides that, there are parameters to where to write this log. So I want to write this log to SIG, which is a sync, as I talked about it before and showed it. So I want to send it to SIG, and I want to pass the SIG host, that is a URL, and then API key for the SIG host. Okay, so these are the information that gets added to the property. Is actually the API key and SIG host, and which is part of the SerilogAppender config. And in the config, in the appender in log4net, you add parameter like this, like API key, seek host, what minimum level. So this will be actually added to the property from the configuration file. So in my case, the log will be sent to this local host 534 port, and with API key that's added in this configuration file. So that's what the logging configuration is. And then I look at each log event that is passed in the send buffer, and I use another private method here to actually log that event to this Serilog logger. So it goes all to SIG. Um, that's pretty much it. And this config file is actually a patch, as you know, in Sitecore. So basically, when I deploy my code, this and the config, the DLL and this config file, Sitecore actually Sitecore add this config in the patch. So is there my SerilogAppender gets added there. Solution wise, this is actually the appender project, and then like I have I have a sample project here, which is to deploy the code and the config, so from my environment. Okay, so once I deploy that, and my application gets deployed here. So so if I hopefully, like this is actually showing me 1232 when the last log was added. Maybe if I refresh this, I will see more item here. Let me refresh. Here you can see 1242, there were some log. This was added to Sitecore and is coming from Sitecore. Now I can go there and basically look at my my log. The reason it is actually showing up here because I have my Sitecore Appender DLL deployed to this Sitecore instance, and the config file is there. So that's pretty much the demo. You can actually get SIG, download SIG from this site, which is free for local use. You can run is in Docker, or you can run as a service. There is no license to it if you are using for development. And if you want to use it in production, there is actually a license which is very, very like minimum probably $600 or $700 a year. So it's nothing compared to what the uh, this tool provides. So that's the demo. Now I have a blog. Actually, there are two blogs I have written on structured logging in Sitecore. One is like talking about the concept, and the other one is actually talking about the Sitecore appender, SerilogAppender. The source code is available in GitHub, so you can take a look in GitHub. I have it in the public repo, so you can download and there is a README if you follow that and deploy it. It should start working for you. And basically, that's where you will find the source code. if you want to know more about structured logging, I highly recommend you to actually look at Nicholas Bloomhard's blog. He is the main guy, like, behind this Serilog framework, and he had done a lot for structured logging. So it's a very, very nice uh, blog he has. Okay. So that's all about structured logging in Sitecore and SerilogAppender. Um, if you have any questions, I'll take some questions here. I think I have a few more
Thank you.
minutes.
Thank you, Himadri. I would like to ask people if has questions, please raise your hand on Zoom. There's a tool to raise your hand. I will let you speak after that. In the meantime, I do have a question or comment here. I recently had one experience where I had to, demonstrate from the log files how much time some operations were taking, right? I wonder. I did that with PowerShell, and that was um, not easy at all because, like you said, it's text file, right? But I did have clearly, the entry in the log where the call is executed and the next entry in the log telling how much time it took. The script was easy, but took like a few hours to put in place. How this strategy would help? How, because I had to play with strings and lines, etc. How structures logged would have helped more than the traditional text logs.
Yeah, so that's a very, very good question. Actually, what I showed here is a bare minimum. I'm just taking a log and, like, pushing that to structured logging way, and basically uh, sending to a target like SIG. That gives itself gives a huge benefit because you do not have to write a partial script or something, right? I mean, you can just go ahead and slice and dice your log file, log statement. But to your question, if you want to take it to one step more, that's when you will start thinking about how you are going to add your text logging. So because this is our, at the end, like, it's log4net and it's adding text logging, it's the text, right? So you need to add little more information to it, and then it is possible to actually change the appender to parse when you are logging, so you can make it more structured. So you come up with some message template and, like, follow the message template whenever you are logging. So that will be, like, a lot more useful, just rather than just dumping the text log in the SIG.
Okay, I see. So you mean like you should, of course, because it's structured, you need to think about the structure that you will have. What structure will be useful for you in the
Yeah,
future?
it does give some structure out of the box because you can add enrichment and other things, right? I mean, you can slice because you are saying, like, my application name is Sitecore. So you can see all your log that for that application. You can see your local environment or dev environment or something like that, right? It gives some structure uh, out of the appender itself, but then you can take it to another level if you add logging in a particular way. You are on mute.
Okay, I am. Sorry, because I can still hear me if I am on mute only at the tool. Any other questions? Please raise your hands. Um, What about the alerts, Himadri? I saw that you had the ability to, that's on the tool itself, to
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think we have too much time to show actually how alert works. But basically the idea is that since you can do query, it part of the tool. So since you can do query, you can actually add alert based on the query. Like, after so many errors, I want to send an email or send it to the Teams channel. Okay, so that all sorts of things that are possible.